stats lie how we've been doing them. I think we need to change, Matt.
Yeah.
And so I had an epiphany, I guess, at the end of June, that I was wrong.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm always the first person to say that I was wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not like it,
Absolutely.
but I'm okay to say it. In August, 500 homes came to the market.
Yeah.
388 of them sold. That's a really good stat. That's really good.
Yeah.
And that's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
But then I sat back one day and I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
That's not how it is. Because when August opened up, there were 969 homes August 1st.
Yeah.
During the month of August, 500 listed.
Yeah.
For a total of 1,469.
Yeah.
Out of that, only 388 sold.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why are we as agents giving false information?
I think it's a matter of what you're trying to gauge, right? And if you're trying to gauge how much inventory is building, or I guess in the case of like COVID, how much inventory is getting eaten up, you could certainly look at it as, hey, listen, 500 versus 388, that's a ratio. Let's keep an eye on that. But if you're suggesting that that 80% of the houses are selling, then you're right. That's way off, because that's not the case, right? It's closer to 30%, or even less maybe if you do the math on 388 over.
Oh, it's 26%.
1,500, right? Exactly. So so that's the expectation that I think everyone has to have with their seller, is that you don't have 500 competitors. You have 1,468 competitors in the month of August, right? And so when buyers are out there looking, they need to understand exactly what you just described. And I think, again, it depends a little bit on what you're measuring, but if you're trying to really measure, the total amount of homes that are going to come off the market versus how many are out there as options, the number you just gave is the accurate one.
And, I saw agents on a chat, they were talking about, oh my God, like, I don't understand. Like the showings are down, and granted they were down about close to 3,000 from July to August. And I don't understand what's happening in the market, but they're not looking at the stats.
Yeah.
Because that's painting a total different picture. And the agent that was here before you, so then I went on about Lord, our minister, and thinking, the whole D-transfer tax that you put in January, that got to go, because only 26% of the houses are selling. How about those people who really need to sell?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then my other bone of contention is that, houses are selling at, 99% like list to sale ratio.
Yeah.
But the initial price is never taken into account.
Totally.
They're looking at 500,000 and the property sold for 497.
Yeah.
Great stat.
Yeah.
But the property was actually 599
when it was originally
and sold for 4. So why is that?
Yeah, again, easy to pull the stat for sure. And the idea of sort of tracking stats over time is to understand, really all you're trying to do is understand the condition of the market, right? Someone once said to me, people don't remember data. They remember the story around the data, right? And so when you take a piece of information and you try and create a story around that data, you have a responsibility to make sure that it's properly reflecting what's going on out there, right? And yes, you're absolutely right again, that the percentage of the last list price is not a true reflection necessarily on how much demand there was on that particular home. Because that particular home started off, let's call it, use the number, $599, ended up at $500 and sold for 97% of that. Well, where would it have sold had it been put at the right price initially? So if it initially had gone on at $500, would it have garnered multiple offers? Would it have sold for 103% of that? So there is a way in which you have to tell the story to the person who needs the information that's going to help them arrive at the best outcome for them, for sure.
I still see in social media agents talking about, it's a hot market, it's time to sell now. What do you think?
I think it's the market that we've lived with for the vast majority of years in my career, right? not necessarily a hot market. I don't think it's a bad market in Atlantic Canada. And again, we're talking strictly from the perspective of sellers here. I think that there's a reasonable amount of inventory on for a buyer to make a decision over the right amount of time. I think that a seller, if they come on at the right price, should expect to sell in a reasonable amount of time. I do think, to your point about the taxes out there, and I would go on to say foreign buyers ban and
we talked about that too.
Limitations on development and stuff like that. Like, there is too much government interference going on out there right now in the housing market. I think that demand has been tampered down a little bit by interest rates and some of that government legislation, and so we're back into a normal market. We run the risk of it actually being a slow market here soon, unless some of those things change potentially, right? So, I don't see the need for the deed transfer tax anymore. The double deed transfer, the 10% deed transfer tax on the out of province people who are buying in our region here. That's not really been a problem.
No, it hasn't been.
When you look at the problems across the country, Toronto has a very specific problem. They have overbuilt their condo market, and they have over 20,000, condos that are available and empty right now, right?
Yep.
10,000 of them are pre-construction, 11,000 of them are under construction right now, and only 1,900 of them are existing units. And so you're telling me that the Toronto market's terrible? The Toronto condo market is overbuilt, right? And so that's affecting everyone else's houses in Toronto as well. That's not the case here. You know as well as I do. In fact, you know better than I do what's going on in the new construction condo world here. There's not a lot of condos out there, right?
No.
And so why are we allowing, kind of national policy to negatively affect local things like the housing market?
But that's just not the government. That's even our own CREA.
Yeah.
We get whatever happens in the bigger markets, everybody's painted with the same brush.
100%.
Like the whole coming soon, you can't celebrate that because of what happened, in Toronto somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Listen, there's only 2 provinces in the country that are down in average price this year, Toronto and British Columbia. Every other province in Canada has seen appreciation in price. And yet the story nationally is that Canada is down in average price. And probably there is enough volume in those 2 provinces to make that the overall picture, but that's not the whole story. That's, again, a stat that doesn't tell the whole story for the potential buyer out there. So if you're going into it reading national news about how the average price in Canada is down this year, it's because, again, condo prices in Toronto have been cut in half. And there's enough of them that it outweighs the rest of the market. But don't come to Nova Scotia and expect that a seller is going to give you a better deal because of what's going on in Toronto. That's just unrealistic.
No, I totally agree. So, you talk to a lot of agents in our office. What are they saying about the market, or are they understanding the market? What is the sentiment that you're getting?
Well, 3 or 4 years ago, business was falling from the sky, right? And if you were flexible enough to just bend over and pick it up off the ground, you could make a reasonable business. So the people who, I think, figured out, I've got to go back to work here and go find opportunities, and I am going to have to go dig for listings for my buyers, and some of it might be off market, and some of it means I'm going to have to be more patient or think about different strategies or whatever. Those who've gone back to work are describing the market as what I would call typical, right? We had not as strong a spring as I think we thought we would. We've had slower markets in the summer, and I expect we'll probably see a little bit of a pickup again in the fall here, just because of normal seasonality, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a whole host of people who haven't really adjusted and gone back to work yet, and they're suffering, right? That's the unfortunate cause of it. And listen, timing plays into this as well. And you see people who are doing a bunch of work, and you know that it's going to pay off, but it just hasn't yet because they haven't, had some clients close. But they're at least working with a bunch of opportunities. And then there's people who just have kind of an empty cupboard right now, and that's unfortunate. And it's my job to make sure that they fill that cupboard up, right? And but I would say, on a whole, it's kind of a boring, typical market. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways.
It is.
So.
Did you see the stat I sent you today?
Which one? Yes, yeah. I read them all, so just tell me which one, because I love them all, actually.
53% of the market. So let's call it 50% of the market, because you got to take out, let's say, brokers and licensed admin. Even 51%.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that stat?
It's crazy. It is crazy. It's it's.
So it's 50% of the agents aren't doing business, haven't done any business since January 1st.
It's as Brian Buffini likes to say, they've done a nice round number, 0, right?
Yeah.
And so it's an unfortunate part of our industry, is that you have a bunch of people who are out there, and whether they are not putting in the effort, or they don't treat it as a full-time profession, or in some cases they're new enough that there's a reason for that, but there are a lot of people who aren't new who have done nothing this year, and that just to me suggests that there's probably people who are not really fit for the business in a lot of ways. It's not something that is an easy job. I think it looks easy on HGTV or Instagram. It's not easy. You know how hard it is.
Yep.
I see how hard you work.
You hear the stat of the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
There is only 1% of real estate agents who are doing more than 20 deals that I saw.
Yeah.
So with that number, the 99% of agents, there were, what did I say, 107 terminated deals. Mm-hmm. Is it because, so I talked earlier today about, buyer remorse, I get it, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But is it because of the agent not understanding the business?
Unfortunately, too many times that's the case, right? Where, as well as I do, going to the rbc.com pre-qualifier and figuring out whether you can afford a home is not getting yourself pre-qualified for a home. And so if the agent relies upon you saying, my bank pre-qualified me already, no, they might have a 440 credit score, and they're not buying anything for 7 years, right? And so, there are too many instances of that for sure. And that's, when you have people who aren't doing a lot of business or aren't necessarily trained or skilled in that respect to ask those questions properly, you're going to end up with scenarios like you've just described, where too many deals are terminating that should never have been put together in the first place, because you might have had a willing buyer and seller, but you didn't have an able buyer and seller in that case.
Yeah, great way to put it.
Yeah.
The pricing strategy that I've been seeing, so we know that out of the 1,400 homes listed, 304 of them had price drops.
Yeah.
62% of the offers that were had were price dropped. Mm. Is that the seller expectation is out to lunch, or is the agent buying the listing? What do you think that is?
That's a hard one to answer, because I think there is some agent buying listing out there, right? And by that, just to clarify the term, it's listen, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, whatever you want. I'll put it on for whatever you want. I really only think it's worth $700, but if you want me to try 8, I'll try 8, just because I don't want to lose the opportunity with you.
Yeah.
But I say that, my 20 years of experience in the business has shown me that the last thing that adjusts always as markets change is expectations of buyers and sellers, right? And so, we all in the industry are aware this ain't 2021 anymore, right? But there's still some sellers who are hanging on to that time where they know their neighbor's house sold for $1 million, and they're having a hard time hearing that theirs might sell for $950, because there just isn't as much demand out there for it.
No, there isn't. And speaking of, and again, earlier conversations, I am struggling with Nova Scotia house assessments. Mm.
Yeah.
And for the most part, the public doesn't see us professionals. You're a realtor, you're a car salesman, you're just an agent.
Yep.
That's all we are. And I had a listing that was, when I met him, he said, I need to sell more than I'm selling for more than my assessment.
Yeah.
So I look up the assessment like, oh my God, it's $2 million.
Yeah.
Now I get to the house and I'm thinking between 8 and 1.1.
Yeah.
So I said to him, he said, so what do you think of the assessment? And I'm like, well, I said, I think you're better off to list at around 1.2.
Yeah.
no. And he come back, I really like you, but I want to do 2.7 or whatever, 2.1, whatever it is that we listed it for. And, but the assessment was based on the other properties around him that were selling over 2 million, like all, granite and boathouses and beautiful wharfs. And this house hadn't been touched since the 90s.
Yeah.
And, they need to change how they're assessing. I know that we need to collect taxes. I get that.
Yeah.
But going in and telling a seller that his house is assessed at 2 million, and there's no way. I mean, of course, the seller wants his house assessed at 2 million with a cap of 500. I get it.
Yeah. Honestly, I have just sort of a general belief that it's hard to rely on a government, kind of department to do that, right? Like, that is a massive job to properly assess every property in the province every year when it comes time to pay taxes, right? And so I don't know the right answer to that, whether that should be, third-partied out to someone else, or there's a partnership with the industry that can help with that. Whatever the solution is, I have not thought enough about that. But there are some wildly inappropriate assessments out there.
But if you look in the South End, the house that never exchanged hands, let's say twice the size of this house, and they're paying less tax.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right, because it's a formula, right? And that formula doesn't make sense. So
so Laura, why aren't you looking? You could be getting more tax dollars from people. I don't know. And I'm not picking on the South End. It's the only thing that's coming to my head right now.
I understand.
But you have multi-million-dollar homes in the South End that are paying way less tax than what other people are, and it just doesn't make sense to me.
Over the course of my career, I've seen projects that finish and someone moves into a new construction home and they're still being taxed at the vacant lot rate for 3 years, right? And so, it just there's an inefficiency there for sure. And again, like, I'm not here to pick on government, but that seems like low-hanging fruit for the government to go pick up some of that tax revenue that they're currently scraping off of people who are coming from out of province or who are...
Because it doesn't make sense that, again, a bigger home, a more expensive home.
It doesn't pass the eye test, that's for sure. You drive by this place and say, that place is not worth $2 million in your case, or vice versa. You drive by the place and realize, oh, geez, this is not a vacant piece of land, or this home is clearly something that we should go back and have a quick look at what it was last assessed at, right? So
Now, I know you talk to Phil Soper a lot. You're pretty tight. What is he seeing of the market here in Nova Scotia? What's his predictions?
I think similar to what we talked about earlier, that the Toronto market has been sort of a negative or drag on the rest of the country at this point, right? But that drag is not really on price, let's say on price, right? And so when you read the news again, you're kind of negatively affected by this unique anomaly that's going on in Toronto, right? And Vancouver to a certain degree, but Toronto is just so overbuilt in this one housing stock type. Nova Scotians Nova Scotian developers realized some time ago that, hey, we need low-rise as well, right? And so we're going to go out and build some of this low-rise housing because that's what the clients are actually interested in. And yes, you can't get as much density. You're not building it as sort of efficiently, but that's what the buyers are looking for. My biggest concern, and this is not a reflection of any conversation with Phil, but my comments to him would be, I have concerns about our rental market, and I say that as a landlord, and I'm concerned that there are so many rental units going up at this point. And again, I'm building some of those, that's going to be the part that's under pressure soon. That potentially rents have to come down, or it's more competitive to get a good tenant into your unit because there's just so much going up right now, right? And again, we're talking government intervention. We've capped the number of foreign students who can come to our universities. We've put a limitation on the number of immigrants who can come into the country every year. We don't have a growing sort of natural birth rate, you know what I mean? And so population drives some of that stuff. And guys who are building apartment buildings made these decisions 5 years ago, and now all of a sudden are facing this new climate where, oh, I thought, I was building an apartment in the south end of Halifax, some of which was probably going to be occupied by kids who were coming to university, and now they're not. You know what I mean? They're still coming from Wolfville to go to Dal,
Yep.
but they're not allowed to come from London or Nigeria or anywhere like that anymore because we're limiting that artificially.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
But we do need immigration.
We do, absolutely we do. Yeah, I don't understand why we react so quickly to limit that kind of thing when there's this housing crisis. And
But is there a housing crisis if only 26% are selling?
I don't think there is anymore. You're absolutely right. And this is the argument that I've started to make, and it's an unpopular argument to make, and you're making it too, is that, hey, listen, there's a balanced market condition going on out there. Yeah, we had this wacky 3-year period where there was a crisis. That's done, right? And in fact, we made a bunch of decisions, policy decisions around this, and those don't make sense anymore because there isn't a crisis out there, right? The limiting of Airbnbs, the the 10% tax on people who are non-residents in Nova Scotia, the foreign buyers ban, the limiting of immigration, they don't make sense. This is a wonderful country to come live in.
I don't think they understand the stats.
I agree with you.
But so where are they getting their stats from?
Well, I mean, I think CREA and CMHC are the two places that I think the government gets the majority of their stats around housing from, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be able to take that information in and use it in context with all of the other information that's out there. You and I know from talking, I don't know, I got very fortunate. This is going to sound like a name drop, but the guy who's the president of SMU. Well, SMU is not in a position right now where their St. Mary's University is not in a great position right now. Like, they don't have the revenue coming in from foreign students. And so they're going to have to cut back on the number of, tenured faculty that they have. So we're in this downward cycle right now towards less people needing housing. And we've created that. We've completely created that. And now it's time for us to react in the other direction to loosen some of that. And nobody is paying attention to that right now. We're still living in this world of there's a housing crisis. There's not enough houses for everybody. We got to build. And limit in terms of the number of people we'll invite in the country. And I think it's all BS. Like, I think the market has corrected. Now it's time to let the market go back and decide what it needs.
I was looking at the stats for new construction.
Yeah.
There was one particular builder who listed, I think it was 50-something homes and only sold 4.
Yeah.
Like year to date, I'm thinking, okay, I did something wrong because I pulled all the stats for the builders, and okay, I got to go back in again because I'm wrong, and I just did this particular company, input, and only sold 4 homes.
That's it.
So where do you see new construction going? If we're only selling 26% of the inventory, and people are still going on about housing, what the heck is going to happen to new construction?
But just to be clear, that's a crisis for that builder. You know what I mean? And
I was
think
shocked.
we have to be aware of that as well, and we need to react to that as an industry and as a government as well. New construction is always going to be more desirable, but at some point, this sort of law of reasonable replacement is going to step in. And if new construction's costing me $7.99 to buy versus $5.99 in the resale market, and it's not as nice, but it's pretty close, I'm going to start to make this decision much more. And the builders are going to be stuck with a bunch of inventory that's going to be very painful for them. They've lived through it before. The smart ones have sort of built contingency around that and built cash. But there's going to be some people who get hurt. And that's a terrible place to be if you've kind of risked your professional career on that, right? So, and again, we've been through this sort of whiplash over the last little bit. And we reacted to the first whip, which was, oh my gosh, housing crisis, shortage of inventory, blah, blah, blah. But as inventory is growing again, where are we stepping in to create a little bit more demand or allow for that demand to come back, which is generally from immigration?
Yeah, I got to write an article for All Nova Scotia.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. You should. I can't wait to read it. You've become the person to go to for stats for this stuff, right? And I love that because I think you've taken the time to really dive in and truly kind of understand it, and that's so important. And I don't think many people do. I think they read the surface stat and the headline.
I
and
get
don't
so
past
angry.
that.
Well, I lose it. No, the guy from Toronto there. It just pisses me off to see the fake stats.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking to sellers now, so I was one of the first ones. Well, actually, I was the first one. Welcome to our new house on 123 Street. That was back, remember,
That's
with
right.
Basson back in
Back in the day.
February 2015
Yep.
was the first one. Now, I did a selfie in 2014.
Yes.
And that was a house in the West. Anyway,
Yeah.
I digress. So I'm going to my sellers now, and you know what I'm saying? I said, look, it's not that's to the billboard.
Yeah.
I said, it's not about your house being pretty or how many views that I can get on an Instagram reel.
That's
I said,
right.
I want to get you to home plate. And this is what I'm seeing that's happening in the market.
100%.
And the deals that are falling, the houses that are not selling.
Yep.
I need to be your support.
Yeah.
And that is the story I'm telling the sellers now. It's not about, hey, I'm really good at my marketing, here you go.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter.
If it were only that, there would be people who are 12 years old who could easily sell homes, because there's some amazing 12-year-olds on Instagram. But that is only a very small part of the whole program here, and you know that very well. So.
No, with the deals terminating, the 62% below asking, the 307 reductions. I don't care how good your house looks online.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
You got to get the home plate.
Absolutely.
And that is where my story has changed. In the past year, my story has changed to sellers.
Yeah.
But in the past few months, I have been very passionate about the story.
Yeah.
And I mean, am I losing listings because of price point? Yeah, I am. And I have lost a few. But I don't want to carry something anymore that I can't sell because of a seller expectations.
Totally.
It doesn't, regardless of what you and I think a house is worth, it's what a buyer is willing to pay.
Yeah, there's, our friend Ralph would say there's two components here. There's the steak and the sizzle, right? And the marketing part is or the Instagram part is the sizzle. But when you arrive at that house and you have to make a decision about whether or not there's substance there and it's worth what it appears to be advertised or marketed as, that's the steak part. And if the steak doesn't taste good, then nobody's coming back to your restaurant. It's got to be both. You got to have both, because if you're missing one or the other, steak without the sizzle, maybe you're not going to get the right exposure. But if it's only exposure and then you get there and it's overpriced, it's not going to work. Nobody's going to get tricked into that. Not at the price.
Not our
that we're
buyers.
talking about. No.
And it's so funny. Like I tell sellers, so when you're a buyer, you love Viewpoint. When you're a seller, you hate it. And I mean, granted, I'm addicted to a great platform that they have. But like you hate it as a seller.
100%, because it reveals what's going on out there, right? So
I hear you. Anyway, on that note, we'll end, and we're going to get you back here in October. And
love it.
You know what? I should have been making bets with you all along, with market.
Yeah, I agree. You've been pretty bang on. So yeah, absolutely. So,
all right. Thank you so much for coming again today, Matt.
always my pleasure.
Thank you.